Hi everyone, we are back with It's Your Money. I'm JoAnn Morgano and my co-host is Martin Salzman. We are both financial advisors and there has been so much going on in the world and in markets. We're very excited to share this information with you. Our show today will also focus on a very touching topic, which is divorce. So let's get started with our market roll.
Yeah, let's get started, and great to be back with you, JoAnn,
Yep.
and RVN Studios. We're in a new studio, and we wish them all the best and their staff. So let's talk about some of the key issues right now. Higher interest rates has been the bane of people's concerns and frustrations, if you will.
Right.
You can't just buy a house like you could about 6 months to a year ago.
Yeah,
now rates are 7.5% maybe on a 30-year.
I spoke to a lot of real estate people before this, and they said they're getting a lot of cash offers. So people are going in with cash because they don't want to pay these high interest rates.
Or putting down a bigger deposit,
Yeah.
huh? Oh, I didn't hear that. That's interesting. Yeah, well, we also have the Federal Reserve is going to be meeting in December. And all people, most people, thought it was like a layup that there was going to be another rate hike in December. But now that we've had this war issue break out in the Middle East, we've seen rates actually back off a little bit, and there is talk about, the economy possibly slowing down a little bit, but you wouldn't know that by the CPI and PPI this morning.
Correct. And then last year this time, everyone was predicting a recession. So
Yeah, they
we're
were.
not at that point yet. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're in one or we're going to be in something worse. I just don't know. But I know that we've been advising our clients to be cautious if they have profits in the market, take advantage of it. Never wrong taking a profit in this business.
And if you do want to go in the market, and a lot of people still do, we recommend dollar cost averaging. That's where you take a chunk in and you go in sequences.
Right.
So that you buy up and you buy down.
Right, and nobody knows the timing of things, and you're going to have ups and downs. And if you could dollar cost average until such time that you withdraw your money, you're going to be in good markets and bad markets making
Yeah, it was a good
purchases.
strategy for a lot of my clients. Yeah.
So let's just touch on the latest. This outbreak in the Middle East is a disaster for the state and country of Israel and its people. And now what comes of it, who knows, who might be drawn into something like this. Even when the United States and President Biden warned, don't get involved. But, it's easy. Iran has been a sponsor of Hamas, and hopefully they just stay where they are and it doesn't escalate.
And we contributed to that by giving payments to Iran.
We sure did. And now, hopefully, it doesn't mean higher and higher oil prices. We actually saw oil prices spike to over $93 a barrel. They've since now come back to $85 a barrel. So, it is tense out there between interest rates, inflation, and now war. We got Ukraine. It's a tough situation out there. Have your clients been voicing concern?
I think everybody's concerned. I mean, the war, since the weekend, it's brand new, and it can go either way for us. And, will sanctions work? We don't really know. I mean, you can't deal with terrorists. They're not logical.
No, but there might be sanctions that are put back on Iran. I don't know.
Right. And we have the whole issue of border control, which is out of control.
That's out of control.
So
that's a whole other story.
Well,
so
I know.
we really have a tough kettle of fish that we're, having to swim through here. It's not easy.
And then we're getting on to a new topic now, which is tough too. It's the topic of divorce.
You know what? We have to talk about it. We're a financial planning show, and it's important that we talk about all types of industries. And we're lucky. We have a special guest here today named Agens Rybar, and she has many, many years of practice in law, specifically in divorce law. And before that, we have to put in that she's a Rutgers graduate, and she served for a judge for family law. I'm going to let her chime in on more of her background. But Agnes, welcome to the set.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we love having you. So tell us just a little bit more about yourself, maybe where you live, your practice, where you practice, etc.
I practice in Toms River, Ocean County, though since COVID, actually, the practice of family law has changed drastically because a lot of the filing of documents has become electronic, and also most court appearances are by Zoom. So it's easier for attorneys to practice throughout the state, not just in one or two counties. It's easy for me to do Zoom appearance, court appearance in any county. Actually, a funny example, I once appeared for a court hearing while I was on vacation in Poland. And it's entirely possible.
Wow. So it seems you bring up something real interesting. Family law or family type practice can be done remote. If it's a criminal trial, that's different. It has to be done in person because you have jurors, etc.
Yes, there are some occasions where some judges may require an appearance in person, but for the most part, it's still remotely by Zoom.
Well, JoAnn and I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to defer to JoAnn.
All right, since we're money people, and I know that people come to you, the first thing they probably want to know is, how much is my divorce going to cost? And what do you tell them?
So this is a common question I get from potential clients. And first, what I have to advise clients is that divorce lawyers in New Jersey charge the clients by the hour. It's not a flat fee, it's not a contingency fee, it's by the hour. So you can imagine that it depends really, the final cost depends on how many hours or how much time the attorney is tending to your case. The hourly rates in this area of New Jersey, they ranged from approximately $300 to $500 an hour. So it can become very expensive, but again, because it's by the hour, the final cost really is in the hands of the clients. It depends how complicated your situation is and how much time you demand on your respective clients.
Do you actually ask for a retainer?
Yes, and that's a common practice amongst divorce lawyers to ask for an initial deposit, initial retainer at the beginning of the case, because otherwise it would be difficult for us to be paid or to collect.
Of course. Well, one of the things that comes up a lot is, well, if my spouse is at fault, do they have to pay my legal fees? Can you talk about that?
Yes, so that question actually embeds two separate issues. Fault. People need to understand that New Jersey is a no-fault state, meaning fault is not assigned to one spouse or the other for the divorce.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if your spouse was cheating on you and you say, I want to get rid of this guy or woman, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Precisely. It doesn't affect the financial outcome of the divorce. It matters emotionally, of course, and that's why really divorces are done by the hour, because they are highly emotional and unpredictable kind of court process. Now, back to fault. Since 2007, New Jersey has enacted a statute for irreconcilable differences, and that's really the grounds for divorce that's used or quoted most often in the complaints for divorce. Probably the vast majority of complaints are filed on the grounds of irreconcilable differences. Nobody has to explain why and who did what to whom. You just have to certify in your complaint that the differences existed between the two of you for at least 6 months.
Okay.
So regarding assets, are they usually split equally, or and debts, how does that work? And do you determine those numbers?
Yes, and I will address that in a second. And to finish the prior question, I didn't answer the first part of the question, which is, will my spouse pay counsel fees? So there are situations where one spouse may have to contribute or pay the other spouse's counsel fees, but it's not because of fault. It's because of their financial circumstances. So you can imagine, let's say one spouse has been a sole wage earner and the other maybe was a stay-at-home parent. So obviously she or he would not be able of paying for their own counsel fees. Now, with respect to assets, so that's another question that I'm asked quite frequently. Will our assets and debts be divided equally? Well, The law in New Jersey provides for equitable distribution of assets and debts.
Fair and equitable, right?
Equitable meaning fair.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily mean equal. However, again, practically, in practice, and I have been doing divorce for about 19 years, most cases end up dividing their assets and debts. Most couples divide their assets and debts equally. And why is that? That's simply because that's the fair or equitable thing to do. There may be situations, rare situations, where it may not be equitable. For example, let's say if one spouse is a habitual gambler and gambled away a lot of marital assets. But again, in most cases, it is equal.
What about if somebody's in prison and, you know, the wife or the husband says, look, I want out. I'm not, you know, does that have any bearing on that?
Well, so that may affect the way support is approached, child support or alimony. Let's say that the spouse who ended up in prison was actually the high wage earner. It is possible. So then maybe the assets are distributed not equally to compensate for this spouse's inability to now pay support, child support.
So let's talk about that for a minute, child support, alimony. It becomes a pretty contentious thing. It's been my history or understanding that if it's a man and he's working, and let's say the woman was the home keeper of the home and the children, that a guy would prefer having a payment in alimony versus child support because alimony is tax deductible to the man. There's a lot of permutations here, but can you speak of it in general terms for our audience?
Yes, so you actually touched upon a lot of separate issues. First of all, alimony is no longer tax deductible.
Oh,
No, it's not.
okay.
And-
Right,
Boy, I better
it's
get up to
tax-free.
speed.
Like child support, alimony has been for the last few years. I think it was 2019 that the tax law changed,
Okay.
making
It did.
alimony a tax-free event.
Okay.
So therefore, the amount of alimony payable has changed because of the tax consequence
Okay.
going away.
Okay.
Yes, so what people often want to understand is how long will my alimony be and how much. There is an alimony statute, of course, that has multiple factors. If I remember, 14 different factors that if the judge were deciding, the judge would have to address every single factor. However, to simplify it, for example, for an alimony obligation to arise, there must be an income disparity between the spouses, right? Like you gave an example, one maybe being a wage earner and the other a stay-at-home parent.
Okay.
So sometimes, and especially I have this question come from older women who are surprised, well, I have been married for 20 or 30 years, why will he not pay me alimony? Well, if your incomes are similar, it doesn't matter how long you've been married, but if incomes are similar, there's no disparity, there will not be an alimony obligation.
Right.
Okay.
Now, the duration of the marriage determines the duration of alimony. So any marriage less than 20 years qualifies for what's called limited duration alimony.
Can you hold that point?
Of
Because we
course.
have to take a break. We've got to pay some bills, and we'll be back with Agens Rybar shortly.
Hi, I'm Angela Pipersberg, and I have a new show here in RVN Television called The Angela Pipersberg Show. And I want you to join me every week as I sit with guests and we discuss their life journeys, share wisdom, and tips that will inspire you to live your best life. Don't miss The Angela Pipersberg Show every week here on RVN Television, where we're celebrating life and we're inspiring you to greatness.
Hi, I'm Dr. Esther Malave, and welcome to my show, Achieving a Better You. Through this show, we're going to explore ways to make a better version of you. For example, nutrition, finance, fitness, health. Remember that there's always a way of making a better version of yourself, no matter what the circumstances are. And remember to look for Achieving a Better You show on RVN TV.
Some say the world has never been more divided, more self-centered,
Gosh, thank you so much.
more uncaring,
Thank you. Oh, miss! Thank you.
that we've never been more disconnected. But through our windows, we're able to see so much good every day. And it's clear that a little kindness is never really little.
Did you know that only 8% of people who set their goals, they actually succeed in achieving them? Well, if you want to be a part of that 8%, then you need to tune into Achieve with JoAnn and Martin, where I will teach you tips, tools, and strategies on how to achieve your goals in any field and on any level. So tune in, watch me on the RVN network on how to achieve your goals and be a part of that 8%. Hi, I'm Angela Pipersberg, and I have a new show here in RVN television called The Angela Pipersberg Show, and I want you to join me.
Welcome back to It's Your Money with JoAnn and Martin. We have our special guest today is Agens Rybar, who is an attorney specializing in divorce law. And right before taking that break, we were talking about alimony, child support, talking about duration. So why don't you pick up where we left off?
Yeah, so the two most common types of alimony are this limited duration alimony, which is for a term of years. The duration depends on the duration of the marriage. Again, that's for marriages that are shorter than 20 years. And again, the length of the alimony depends on the length of the marriage. The statute saying the duration of alimony cannot exceed the duration of the marriage itself. But as far as specifics, it's negotiable. You know, the duration and amount of alimony are negotiable topics. I will mention the second type of alimony, the most common type, is open durational alimony, what used to be known as permanent. And I think the legislature got rid of that name because it was confusing to some people, and some recipients would believe that it's forever, never ends. But you know, in life, nothing is forever, not even permanent alimony, now called open durational alimony, and that's for marriages that are over 20 years in duration. When I said, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, so from the date of marriage to the date of the filing of complaint, it has to be at least 20 years for open durational alimony to be applicable. Now, I mentioned that the duration in terms of limited duration alimony and amount are negotiable, unlike child support, where there is what's called a child support guidelines. There is a computer program, literally, where you plug in the incomes and other information, and it gives you the number, how much is to be paid by one party to the other. Not so with alimony. So alimony becomes negotiable, which means, well, how do we negotiate it? I would like people to understand also that a divorce process, whether you file a complaint for divorce or you decide to maybe agree with your spouse to go to mediation, a divorce process will eventually require you to attend mediation. Whether you do it privately, voluntarily, before you file your complaint, or after, it's mandatory. The court will order you both to attend mediation, and if needed, multiple rounds of mediation until the case is settled.
Yeah, so some couples like to go to mediation because they feel that they can, you know, especially if it's amicable, they feel that they can keep the costs down.
Absolutely, because then you have one, typically mediators are divorce attorneys, not all, but most mediators in Ocean County, in New Jersey, are divorce attorneys who have experience practicing divorce law. So you are paying for one, the two of you splitting that cost rather than two, and also it's obviously then you are not in court, you are not filing motions, and you are not spending all this time on litigation. You are trying to focus on reaching a compromise.
And then the mediator will help with the asset division. So explain that scope.
Absolutely, with all the issues, including custody issues, which we'll not be talking about today. We're focused on money, but a mediator will try to help you reach an agreement on all issues incident to the dissolution of the marriage, because an agreement on all issues is required to get a divorce. So the way the divorce process works, you can't just get a divorce first and then work out all the issues. No, you have to reach an agreement on all the issues first, and with that agreement, you get divorced. If a party, or if the parties are unable to reach an agreement, let's say they go through 3 rounds of mediation and still there's no agreement, eventually, when the case is at least a year old or so, the judge will give up and say, okay, I'm going to schedule you for a trial. But that's not very frequent.
So when they reach the agreement, though, do they still have to go to their attorney to process the paperwork, or can they do that themselves?
So there's no requirement for litigants to be represented to file for divorce. There's a website. If you Google NJ Courts, you will be directed to a website where there are forms. And but even with the forms, some people get lost in the process because there are multiple steps. You have to file this, you have to file that, you have to serve your spouse and provide court with a proof of service. So most people get lost after a step or two, and it's easier even if you do mediation privately and you do reach an agreement. It's easier, I think, for then just one of you, one spouse, to hire an attorney to just process this paperwork through the court system to get you divorced. It wouldn't cost a lot because obviously the attorney is not spending a lot of time. The attorney is not now attending negotiations, etc.
That's definitely the way to go.
I believe you get what you pay for.
Right.
I'm an advocate of using professionals for things just like we tell people to use a financial advisor or an accountant or any other attorney for matters. But I wanted to just touch a little more on the child support side because I hear a lot from clients, oh my gosh, I have to pay for all of my kids' colleges and my wife's not even helping me. And, it's like books and this and that. How do you get over that? It could be the other way too. The wife could be the breadwinner. I don't want to sound like,
Yeah, well, so the laws for custody and also support are gender neutral.
Okay.
And of course, I've seen cases where it's a wife who may have to pay alimony to the husband if she is the higher income earner, because like I said, it's a factor or it's a function of income disparity. Right. But still, it's still most common that it's the men who make more than women, and it's the women who may stay home with the children to raise children. So most times it's still the men who end up paying alimony, but it's the law is gender neutral.
But now these kids are 17, 18, and they're getting ready for college, and college costs are murder.
Yes, so New Jersey, I'm not even sure how many states in the United States are now, but it's the exception to the rule where, children are automatically emancipated at 18 in most states, but not in New Jersey.
Right.
In New Jersey, a child is not financially emancipated for as long as that child is a full-time student. So if the child attends college after high school for 4 years, you're talking, child support continues until 22. And not only child support, on top of it, now you have college expenses, which may be allocated between the spouses, depending on their financial circumstances.
So do you call in a lot of experts with certain cases? For example, if a client has a business and the other spouse becomes suspicious that he's putting money away, would you call in a forensic accountant to help?
Yes, so if one of the spouses is self-employed, then there is a difficulty with two issues really. First of all, what is the value of that business? Because the business itself is an asset that may be subject to equitable distribution. And secondly, what is that spouse's real income? Because there's a lot of businesses where it's hard to determine the income, and maybe there is a cash income, or maybe the business account is used to pay personal expenses like a mortgage and car payments, insurance, etc. And so there is the concept under the law of what's called income imputation. Family judges have authority to impute income to a spouse who may be unemployed, or even in a self-employment situation. If the judge has to decide, and maybe there is no expert, the judge has authority to impute income, which means to assume that a spouse is capable of earning a certain income despite of what the tax returns may be showing.
So it doesn't matter if you look back, say, 5-6 years worth of income taxes. Let's take an example of somebody that runs a landscaping business. I mean, they get paid, some of them get paid in cash, right? And is that always shown on the books?
Right,
Or,
so the cash income is one issue. And also another issue is, let's say in a typical small business, there's a Schedule C for business income and business expenses. A lot of those business expenses are inflated.
Okay.
Maybe they are not necessarily
Right.
business, maybe they are actually
Right.
personal expenses. So
Yeah.
that's where the judge can scrutinize that Schedule C and say, well, this traveling expense, I don't believe you spent this much. I'm going to add this amount back to your income for support purposes. But also, if there is a more complicated business or maybe a large business, there may be a need for an expert. Like
Would
a
you bring
forensic
that
accountant.
expert? You would bring that expert
I
in
would
for- or
recommend.
the- right,
I would
okay.
recommend to the client.
But the judge doesn't bring that expert in.
So if the judge is asked to order a business evaluation,
Then they would.
typically the judge will allow the parties and their attorneys to select the expert.
Okay.
And most times people agree on a joint expert because they're extremely expensive. And speaking to about cost, sometimes the expert may end up costing you more than the attorney.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So let's move a little bit to some assets, which is very typical, our retirement accounts, and what's critical to move that with the Quadro. So
Yes, so retirement assets are subject to equitable distribution like all other assets, but it's more complicated because it's not a bank account that you can go and simply split up between yourselves. There's a whole process involved in dividing most retirement assets. Maybe some simple IRAs, they can be divided
Yes.
by what's called a letter of intention, but most retirement accounts, 401ks, pension plans, they require what's called a qualified domestic relations order, which is a type of order that has to be prepared after a divorce to divide the plan between the spouses.
and that's the way the assets move.
Yes.
Because they're typically locked up, without that. And
Yes.
I've had people come to me without the Quadro, and they have to go back and get it, and you can open that up at any time, correct?
Yeah, it's something that gets prepared after a divorce because the judgment of divorce and the divorce agreement are required by the plan administrator who manages a specific plan in order to approve that qualified domestic relations order. So it's something that's filed with the court, and ultimately once it's signed and filed, it is sent back to the plan administrator who holds it in their file if it's a pension, for example, because a pension is something that's going to be divided probably in the future when the member retires.
Right.
With 401ks, the division takes place right away, so upon receipt of that qualified
assets
domestic
move,
relations
yeah.
order, the plan will then send forms to the other spouse, the alternate payee, we call it the recipient of the spousal share. And then, the forms are filled out, and the spouse gets to select how they want that money. Do they want to roll it over into their own maybe retirement
Yes.
account, or do they want to liquidate it? Then there's a
Take
tax
a
consequence
distribution,
and all those issues.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's the only way to move it with
Absolutely.
that Quadro. That's kind of the nickname.
Yeah, Quadro. We call it Quadro.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
again, the more complex one's marriage is with assets, if you have a second home, if you have children, if you have pension plans and other properties, it becomes just critical to use somebody who's in the industry, who's professional,
I agree. And I've seen divorces where people try to save up money on their divorce.
Right.
They may write up an agreement between themselves, or maybe they pull up a form online, and then they end up having problems after the divorce. They end up having litigation over issues that maybe were not addressed in the agreement or improperly addressed. And it becomes actually more expensive to try to fix the problems than to address them upfront properly during a divorce process.
So I think we have to wrap up, if I'm not mistaken, but because time just goes by quick on our show. But why don't you provide some contact information, an email address, your phone number, etc.?
Yes, so again, it's the law office of Agens Rybar. I'm in Toms River. The phone number is 732-286-7763. My email address is agnes@rybarlaw.com. The website is www.rybarlaw.com.
You did a great
That's
job
great.
today, and we rattled off a lot of things to you, and you just went boom, boom, boom. You answered everything. So I hope our viewers, get some education and learn. Use a good divorce attorney if you're going down that road.
Expedite
So-
that process, yep.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Agnes.
Thank you so
very
much for having me.
Great job,
Thank you.
great job. So welcome back again to It's Your Money. Glad to be in our new studio. I hope you like it. Nice plants behind us there. And we'll see you next time, right, JoAnn?
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
See you
See
again.
you soon.